Okay, we've looked at how to represent or manipulate the formula, changing the subject. We're now going to bring it on an extra step where there are more parts to the question, including the manipulation. So here in example 1, we're told if y is equal to ax plus a and x is equal to 3a minus 2, write y in terms of a. So essentially, I want you to completely understand what this question means. Y is equal to ax plus a. If it asks us to write y in terms of a, that means that we should only have y's and a's in the question. So we can't have any other unknown. So in this question here, we have y an unknown, a an unknown, a an unknown, but we also have an x that is unknown. And if we're to write y in terms of a, we need to get rid of the x. But we are told some information. We're told here that x is equal to 3a minus 2. So I can now, instead of having my x there, write 3a minus 2. But remember, it's ax, which means it's a multiplied by x. So if x is 3a minus 2, it's now going to be a multiplied by 3a minus 2. So I'll show you what that will look like. We'll have our y equals a. Instead of writing x, I'm now going to write multiplied by 3a minus 2. And then I still have my plus a at the end. So technically now I have started to write it in terms of y in terms of a because I only have y's and a's as my unknowns. So obviously first things first here, we would work out our brackets. So I'm left with y equals a multiplied by 3a will give me 3a squared. And a multiplied by minus 2 will give me minus 2a plus a. And at this point here, we try and group anything that we can. So we have an a squared, so there's nothing else with an a squared here, so we can't do anything there. But we do have a minus 2a and a plus a, which is the same as a minus 2a and a plus 1a. So I can group them together or solve that sum, and I will be left with y equals 3a squared, and minus 2a plus 1a gives me minus 1a. Or I could just write minus a. And so essentially, I've done exactly what the question has asked me. I've written this whole sentence in the form of a, meaning that there is just an a there. And you can have numbers, that's fine, but as regards unknowns, it can only be a. So y is equal to 3a squared minus a. So that's the first part done. The second part asks me to find the value of y when a is equal to 6. So a is equal to 6, I can now fill that in on my equation. So I have y equals, I have 3, again it's 3 bracket a squared. It's the a that's squared, not the 3a, so it's going to be 3 times 6 all to be squared, minus a, which is going to be minus 6 in brackets. So as normal, I would solve my brackets, so I'm left with y equals, well, 6 squared is 36, and 3 times 36 is 108, minus 6, and so my final answer for this part here is y equals 108 minus 6, which is 102. So that's the second part of the question. Okay, here we have an example of a question that is asking us numerous things, but one of them is manipulating the formula. So you can see here, no matter what the question is if it says express your answer in terms of pi, that essentially means you want pi on one side, everything else on the other. In this question here, it says express h. So another word for manipulate or get the subject of is express. So here they want to express h in terms of the other variables, and variable in this case would just mean any other letter. So anything we don't know the value of. And then the last question asks us to find the total surface area of the question. So in this question, we're mixing our algebra with our work on volume, and this can come in loads of different ways. You'll see it mixing algebra with speed, algebra with distance, and so on. So we take each question as it comes, and we start with the first bit. Okay, so the first part of this question. A total surface area of a closed cylinder is given by the formula A equals 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi r h. and A obviously stands for the surface area. So the total surface area of the closed cylinder is if R is equal to 3 centimetres and H is equal to 4 centimetres. Express your answer in terms of pi. Okay, so my formula is A equals 2 pi R squared plus 2 pi R H. I'm told that R, the radius is 3 centimetres, and the H, the height is 4 centimetres, so I can now enter that in. Area is equal to 2 pi R squared, which is going to be 3 squared, plus 2 pi R, which is 3, times H, which is 4, and keep everything in brackets to make sure that you're on the right track. So work out the brackets here. This number here is going to be 9, so A equals 2 pi bracket 9 plus 2 pi times 3 times 4 is 12. And we can tidy this up a little bit more by writing area equals 2 times 9 is going to give me 18, and I still have the pi, because remember that's 2 multiplied by pi multiplied by 9, so I've just multiplied my two numbers here. And likewise I can do this here. I have 2 multiplied by pi multiplied by 12, so 2 times 12 is going to give me 24 pi, and hopefully you're spotting the next move here. You have 18 pi plus 24 pi, and you can add them together, and I will get 43 pi here. So the question asked me, what is the total surface area, so your area? Express your answer in terms of pi, which means your answer will have a pi in it, and you can see the answer here is 43 pi. So, we're manipulating to an extent here. All right, the second part of that question was, again, we're told the information, the total surface area of a closed cylinder is given by this formula. Area equals 2 pi R squared plus 2 pi R H. Express H in terms of the other variables, which basically means we want H on one side, everything else on the other. We want H equals. So this is a question involving manipulating the formula. So I'm just going to zoom in here. So let's write it out and see what we're dealing with. A equals 2 pi R squared plus 2 pi R H. So obviously the H is what we're looking for. So first things first is I would get this section on its own over to the other side. So the way we're going to do that is if we have a minus 2 pi R H, what I do to one side I must do to the other, minus 2 pi R H, and they will cancel. And on this side now I'm left with area minus 2 pi R H equals 2 pi R squared. So you can see I'm the first step there. At least I've got my H on this side. The second step, hopefully you're seeing it, would be to get rid of the A here. So if I get rid of the A, it's just an A on this side, so I need a minus A on this side and also a minus A on this side here. And we can spot that the plus A and the minus A would cancel. And now on this side I have minus 2 pi R H equals 2 pi R squared minus A. Okay, and again we are looking for here to get the H on its own. So what we have essentially is we have a minus multiplied by a 2, multiplied by a pi, multiplied by a R, multiplied by a H. And we just want the H there. But all of this is multiplied by, so I can get rid of it by dividing by minus 2 pi R. If I divide all of that side by minus 2 pi R, I must also divide all of this side by minus 2 pi R. And you can see that your minus and your minus will cancel. Your multiply by 2 and your divide by 2 will cancel. Your multiply by pi and your divide by pi will cancel. And your multiply by R and your divide by R will cancel. And you're left with H equals 2 pi R squared minus A all over minus 2 pi R. Now, that is essentially the correct answer. You've written H in terms of the other variables, which are A and R. So you can see here we have just the A's and R's here, and we have our pi. Obviously, that didn't go anywhere. If I wanted to clean it up a tiny bit, I can. When you see this part here, that really means H is equal to 2 pi R squared all over minus 2 pi R minus A all over minus 2 pi r. So that's the same thing. And we could say that this 2 and this 2 would cancel, and this pi would cancel, and this r and this r squared would cancel. So essentially we could say that we have minus r minus a over minus 2 pi r could also be in terms of h. But again, this here is perfect. It's just if you wanted to figure out, you can't cancel out everything because it's separately written like this. Okay, and the third part of that question said, hence find the height of the closed cylinder with the total surface area of 345.4 centimetres squared and a radius length 5, and take pi to be equal to 3.14. So essentially they're asking us to just do a sum out here, find the height. So let's first of all write down the formula that we know and we were given at the very start, and it was area equals 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi r h. We now know that the total surface area is 345.4, so I'm going to fill that in. Instead of writing area, I'm going to write 345.4 equals 2. Instead of writing pi, I'm now going to write 2 times 3.14. And r squared is going to be 5 squared plus 2 times 3.14 times r, which is 5, and times h, which we don't know. So we can use our calculators for the bulk of all of this. So again, on this side here, I'm going to have just 345.4. But if I type this into my calculator, I should get 157 plus, and I'm going to type in these three numbers here. So 2 by 3.14 by 5. And I'm getting 31.4 times h, which is 31.4h. So again, we're trying to solve for h the whole time. So, what I would do here is I get my numbers to one side, everything else to the other. So I have a 345.4 and a 157. So I'm going to get them on the right side. So if that's the case, I'm going to do a minus 157 on this side and a minus 157 on this side. They will cancel, and 345.4 minus 157 is 188.4 equals 31.4h. We do not want 31.4h, we want h on its own. But again, because it's all attached, the only way I can get rid of a 31.4 multiplied by h is if I divide by 31.4. But what I do to one side, I must also do to the other. So my multiplied by 31.4 and my divide by 31.4, they're gone. And I'm now left with dealing on the left-hand side, 188.4 divided by 31.4, and I got 6. Which means the h is equal to 6, or the height is equal to 6. So here you can see an example of a question which required us to do part 1, which was substitution, part 2, which was manipulating off the formula, and then part 3 here, which was working out an equation, so solving essentially. So you can see how the manipulation can be brought in into different parts as well. Okay, another example of a question here. Consider an object is dropped from rest. If the object from height h, then its speed is v. On hitting the ground, the formula is v equals the square root of 2gh, where v is obviously the speed, velocity, g is the ground, and h is the height, and g is the ground on Earth. So they've given us some information here. They've said g equals, so we'll just write it on the side, g equals 9.8. Okay, what is the speed of the object? So find v if the height is 40. So now v is going to be equal to the square root of 2. We now know what g is. We were told it up here. 2 times 9.8. And in this case, the height is 40, which means the h is 40. So times 40. What would the speed be? And you can just use your calculator to work that out. So v equals the square root of 785. 4, and the square root of that is equal to 28. So the speed there is 28 meters per second. Okay, the second part of the question asks us to manipulate. Write in terms of h, so we want h on one side, everything else on the other, and hence find the height from which an object was dropped if its velocity when hitting the ground was 42 meters squared. So first of all, write this in terms of h. So I'm going to rewrite the formula again. V equals 2gh, the square root of it. So we want to write it in terms of h. First things first, let's get rid of the square root. And we would do that by squaring both sides. The square root and the square cancel. And I'm now left with v squared equals 2gh. Again, we want to write it in terms of h. So we want to get rid of the 2g. Basically, that's a 2 multiplied by a g multiplied by a h. If I want to get rid of that, I have to divide by 2 and a g. What I do to one side, I must do to the other. So divide by 2 and a g. And what you'll see there is you will see your 2 cancels, your g cancels, and you're left with h equals v squared all over 2g. And so we've written it in terms of h as they've asked. The second part of that question, they said hence. So another word for hence, or once you've done this, find the height of an object if it was dropped, if the velocity when hitting the ground was 42. So they told you that the velocity now is 42 meters per second, which means I'll be filling in 42 here, all to be squared, all over 2g, which we read up at the very top, was g was 9.8, so 2.9.8. And that should give me the h. So again, you use your calculator here to type all of that in, and you should get on top 1764 divided by, on the bottom, 19.6. If you divide those two, you should get 90, and that is equal to our h. So first steps here was to rearrange the formula, and then we had to apply some substitution. The last part of that question then, if we were to zoom in, on another planet, an object dropped from a height of 117 meters would hit the ground at a speed of 78 meters per second. Find the value of g. So we now know the height and we know the velocity or the speed, and we're looking for g. So let's rewrite our formula. We can write it in either terms. We'll use the term that we've just written down. Okay. And so we know v squared equals 2g equals h. We now know that the h is 117. We know that the speed is 78, so it's going to be 78 squared, all divided by 2g. And we're going to solve for g essentially here. So fill in what you know, work out your brackets, and I'm going to just tell you the answer from here, and I want you to see how you can figure out it happened. So 78 squared is 6,084, all divided by 2g, which we don't know, equals 117. So again, if you've got a situation here where you've got fractions, so this is essentially a fraction, we need to get rid of it, we need to make it a linear. So obviously we've got to divide by 2g here. I'm going to write multiply by 2g. And also, if I do to one side, I must do to the other. So they will cancel, and I'm now left with 6084 equals 117 times 2 times g. And again, we are not looking for 117 2 times g. We're just looking for g. I could tidy up my numbers here a little bit, and 117 multiplied by 2 is 234. So essentially what I have here is 6084 equals 234g. But again, the question asks me to find g. So we divide by 234 here and 234 here. And I'm left with g is equal to 6,084 divided by 234, which gives me 26. So in this, the distance from the ground is 26. And so that's that full question done out, asking us different parts, a lot of substitution, a bit of manipulating the formula, and then finally solving the question. Okay, you're now to write notes on all of video 2 and you now have the skills to complete activity 3, activity 4 and activity 5.